Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming. It's always an honor and more humbling, I guess, to be invited to speak at things like this because, I don't consider myself that great of an artist, and I don't consider myself really worthy of all this attention, if there is any attention. And my credentials are a pretty short list, let's put it that way. But the one consolation is, and I think Scripture bears this out, that the good Lord always uses the stuff that just it isn't expected. So I'm thankful for that. I look at I'm one of two surviving members of my immediate family, and I look at the old pictures. There was 4 kids, and there was 3 handsome children, and then this ugly primate who was the last one, and that was me. I'll give you an introduction about myself in a bit, but I want to hold off and start with this story. So I don't know if you've heard of Art Prize. It's this ridiculous art competition that started in my own backyard. I don't mean really my backyard, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And someone got this idea of plunking down lots of money to draw artists, didn't matter who. I think they really wanted global artists to come. And you could display, it sort of worked out, sort of like sending out resumes. You had to confront one of the proposed venues and say, please, show my stuff in your venue. And all the venues were in Grand Rapids. In the early years, the event was really something. It was ridiculous. I don't know if you've heard of other art competitions worldwide. There's the Kandinsky Prize, the Turner Prize. Those all have reputations. And here, a couple of guys who basically ran a soap company decided, hey, we'll have an art competition. And they had no clout behind their names. So they plunked down money to the tune of the first prize winner used to get $250,000. So everyone tried to enter this thing. Generally, bigger was better. These huge pieces that it was just ridiculous. So one year I decided to do this. Well, actually, I had decided several years prior when my old high school art teacher basically shamed me into doing this competition. So I'd done it for a few years, and this one particular year, I created a sacred piece. Now, you have to understand, these are put in public places, and the crowds are ridiculous, okay? Just kind of mirroring the purse prize. There's enough people, like on a Saturday, that the sidewalks just can't even handle the people. They're walking on the street downtown. So I entered this piece. It's about 5 by 7 feet. And here I was in basically a conference room of a hotel. It's kind of an odd piece to have in the public. And as you can expect, the public acted in various ways. There were people, so this is like shoulder to shoulder people coming by seeing this. There were people who said, oh, I don't think Christian artwork should be in this competition. And I thought to myself, well, never mind the fact that we dragged you kicking and screaming through the dark ages. And then another young man who was obviously on his way to class downtown. He had a backpack. He set it down, stood maybe 15 feet away from it, crossed himself, bowed his head, and said a prayer. I thought, well, that too is unusual. So I was there. When I was in art parties, I like to stand by my piece because otherwise I work in a this little bubble and I have no clue. So and I encouraged other artists who went to art parties. It's like you really should stand by your piece. And they're like, I don't want to. It's like this is the one chance where someone is going to think your work is the best in the world. So it's a great confidence booster, but not only that, it's good to have feedback. So I was, standing by my piece one day, and these crowds are coming by, and then I noticed a Middle Eastern man come through the door, and he had two of his friends, and I could tell. I mean, artists are supposed to be observant, right? I mean, I went to college where there was groups of Middle Eastern students. You could always tell not just the color of their skin. They typically wore dress pants, white shirt, maybe a gold chain. They looked very presentable, and it was always guys. There was never any girls. So these three guys came through the door, and I thought, oh, this will be interesting. So one of them separated himself from the other two, and eventually kind of, he's looking at some of the art. The other two went to some other room and were looking at artwork there. And the one guy finally came up to me and asked two questions of this painting. Who was that man and why did he have to die? And that took me by surprise. I mean, sure, I was raised in a good Lutheran household, and you're always ready to have the answer, right? So at first I was like, oh. So I knew enough that, okay, if this guy is Middle Eastern, he better watch what he says, what he asks, right? I mean, he could die for that. So I gave him the Reader's Digest version of, the gospel, and away he goes. That little episode it brought to mind why I do what I do. It's not just pretty stuff. It's not just, oh, isn't that nice? It begs a question or two, or at least it should when it's done right. So since that time, I've been aware of that, I guess, maybe not as much as I should, but certainly more than I did. And there's a little epilogue to that story, but we'll save that for a bit. So about me. Who is this Riojas guy? I mean, he doesn't look German. Where's he come from? He can't be Lutheran. I'm half German. I'm a bit tall for a Mexican. So my dad was Mexican. My mom was German. Her maiden name, if you care, was Weppler or Weppler. And there were Ray Cubs in the mix. So, and I was raised the youngest of 4 kids in a good LCMS family. And I knew from kindergarten that I wanted to be an artist. So if you have oddball kids like that, don't just discount them, okay? I stuck with it. It's like, all my brothers were outside playing ball, and I was like, no, I'm going to plop down at the kitchen table and draw. It's just what I wanted to do. So I went through a Lutheran grade school, no art program. It wasn't until high school that I started having an interest. I mean, I had the interest, but before I had any kind of formal education. It was an excellent high school for that. It was new. They had new facilities and ridiculous art facilities, really. They had a pottery studio. They had a jewelry making studio, which it's there's guy stuff in there. Believe me, you did metal casting and things like that. So, and then I went to a Roman Catholic college, sleeping with the enemy, and I took note of in their library. It's like, boy, Luther's works. They have a whole collection, but where are they? It's like they either took them off the shelf or they're reading them. So I thought that was sort of interesting. So I got my degree, and then it's like, now what do I do with this, fine art degree? Well, then I worked in an ad agency for a while, and eventually that was such a volatile place to be. You never know. One day I got fired, and then the next day I got rehired because the bosses disagreed on something. And eventually I ended up in the newspaper industry, and I was in that for almost 31 years. I was grateful to have that. It was easy, at least for me. What other person gets to doodle all day and you paid for it? But then I saw the end coming, and there were things that I had been working on a few things, a few projects. You'll see some of them. Starting with my own church, I did the Te Deum panel, which wraps around the entire sanctuary. And then after that, I went to Pastor Peterson's church. He asked me to do a mural there, which I did. And when I finally got downsized at the press, I hit the ground running. I've been really blessed. I know in the beginning, there were people who basically made up work for me to do. I know that. But now I have a much better boss. He is just showering me with so much work to the tune of, I probably have a waiting list of maybe 2 years for commissioned pieces. And it's really rewarding. The thing that's interesting is that, again, I don't look at my own abilities. There are things that I do and I'm working. It's like, I'm being taught all the time. When you're forced to look at scripture from a little different angle, it's kind of cool. And when you hear stories of, just like this thing, having those two guys ask the questions, that's important stuff. So let's go back and into time. The earliest Christian symbols. It was not the cross. Forget the cross. And that's kind of people are like, what? No. It was rude to talk about crucifixions back in the day. You didn't bring it up unless you were just a total idiot and had no social graces. You just didn't bring it up. So it was difficult for them to think about the cross, to use it as a symbol or anything. So early Christians kind of latched onto things that were around them, things that they were used to. So David, when you say David, he was a shepherd. So images of shepherds, that was common in the Hebrew mind. Also from the surrounding cultures, Rome and Greece, they had gods who pastoral things, shepherds. You look at this and kind of something should spark in your mind. That's a good shepherd. Well, early Christians were very wise. They picked up on that and it's like, well, here's a greater shepherd. This is the great shepherd. And the idea of fishing and nautical things, that was a big deal. They started, everyone knows, you put a fish on your bumper for Pete's sake. When you see the fish, you know what it means. And anchors were really important, not just for the hope, but also because some of the different forms of anchors had a kind of a hidden cross in them. So they sort of, you can sort of see how they put a cross. I'll use a little bit, maybe. They also ripped off the idea of the phoenix from here. This is a Greek coin. So the idea, even though it's from a pagan culture, the idea of this bird dying and rising from its ashes, I mean, you can sort of see the logical leap to the resurrection. This I love. This is one of my favorite things. It's an ossuary from Turkey, and it has the sign of Jonah, although it looks like, what in the world is going on there? It's pretty cool, I think. And also, there's that anchor, but it's not really an anchor. When you look at it closely, it's like a guy, and then there's like two fish. Constantine was, credited with bringing the Chi Rho. It's kind of interesting. I guess this is stone, but you can see the Roman-style soldiers there. This apparently, and I don't know, Wiki tells me that this is probably the earliest image of the crucifixion. It's on a door. It's wooden. I don't know. I don't remember where it's from, but it's kind of a goofy representation. They're not really on crosses per se. It's just kind of strange. And here's Jesus, the Swede in Jerusalem. Early on, they wanted to show Christ in a special way. So here, I mean, even though this is a more contemporary piece, you've got the glow thing going on, but they started using halos, which is a ripoff of another pagan idea. You identify someone who's holy, and you would do that because, well, otherwise this could be any shepherd. Well, this is an important shepherd. This is the good shepherd. And then a step beyond that, they would use the tri-radiant nimbus. That is not a cross. It's been labeled as the cruciform nimbus. No. There was lots of people crucified. So why would putting a cross behind someone? Nimbus can be found behind the image of the dove, and the Holy Spirit was not crucified. It's also found behind the hand of God coming down out of a cloud, the hand of the Father. He was not crucified. So it confesses so much more when you put it behind this man, and you know that he's a person of the Holy Trinity. Other stuff, I'm guessing, I don't know, close to 100% of every Lutheran church in America had or has one of these on the altar. And people get confused about that little IHS thing. It's just an abbreviation of Jesus. And I could be wrong, but I'm guessing, people got squeamish about putting a corpus up there. And then someone said, I think we should have Jesus on the cross. And they got away with it by putting an abbreviation of Jesus on the cross. But seriously, that symbol has been, actually a monk used it for other purposes. This really means this and that and that. Some people have said in his service. No, that's not it. It's just a simple. It's just Jesus. I encourage people to look at stuff when they visit a church. I mean, and their own church, certainly. And it's a great teaching moment, I think, because people forget. I was telling Pastor Peterson about, the tri-radiant nimbus. This is my quick plug for my book on this. It's already heading for its second printing, which is, I don't know. I don't even understand this stuff, but what was I going to say? Oh, yes. So CPH welcomed me to the family. They sent me a packet. I get my official CPH mug and a CPH pen that still sort of works. Uh, and and so they're all happy as clams. And then I get this Christmas card from them. And I was like, oh, that's nice. What a, kind of a mod design. It's all foil stamped and nice paper. Wow, this is nice. And then my wife, Mary, said, did you see that card? And I thought, uh-oh. So I looked at it again. So it was, the Holy Family, kind of very mod take on it. And oops, tri-radiant nimbus behind Jesus and Mary and Joseph. And I thought, this is why I'm doing this book. It's funny, I brought it up. I was kind of bold. I can be snarky. I'm sorry if I am. I brought this up with, it wasn't my editor. It was the marketing group that we had a Zoom meeting. This is what we're going to do. And, you're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And please, promote this. And I said, yeah, I got this Christmas card, and this is what's wrong with it. And no one claimed responsibility for it. I don't know where that came from. So the reason for putting this up is the one thing you notice, it's beautiful. Sure, it's beautiful. There's stars up there. I don't know if you have stars in the chancel area, maybe? Chancel area, stars. Why do you have stars? So there's this, in my town, there's St. Andrew's Cathedral. If you go inside, it's beautiful again. They've got, you can make out like the Big Dipper and stuff. It's like, no. They symbolize angels, meaning this is a special place. So knock it off, shut up, and pay attention. This is where God comes down to us. And it's, well, that's unfortunate. I see Saturn in there too. That's weird. Not, sort of loosely. Yeah. There was a time when you walked into church and you were literally standing on the cross of Christ. That's pretty special. All these symbols. There are some churches. Well, a lot of churches have crosses on the steeples, but I like the churches that have a rooster on the steeple, and it's like, whoa, what are you trying to be, colonial or something? And it's intended to give us a huge dose of humble pie, because yes, we've denied Christ, and this is the place to come. I shouldn't have to explain this, but I will. 8 sides, the number of perfection, new birth. Cool stuff. I love this. It's someplace in Scandinavia, I don't know where. The idea of this circle, the communion rail, you get this real sense of intimacy and completeness and stuff. But I like this one even better. This one is, I think, in Sweden someplace. This used to be a thing where you'd have a half circle. And the idea is that circle continues out into the church yard. The church yard is where you would bury folks. So, when you're coming to Holy Communion and you hear that phrase, together with all the saints, all the host of heaven, that's what it's talking about. And again, it's just a symbol. I mean, my church growing up, it was a straight line. The one I'm at now, it's a square. So it doesn't matter. But again, it's the symbol. It's what you're showing. And again, even the exterior architecture, gosh, just count the number of arches or windows, for Pete's sake. There's architects, they're no dummies either. When they design a church, especially the older ones, it's like there's some thought that goes into that, which sort of, I hear the echo of even the stones cry out. Now we're going to get into some of the work that I do. I have kind of this standing relationship with ecclesiastical sewing. So I help them design the appliques, I guess is what you would call them. It's a lot of fun. Carrie Roberts, she owns this little confessional Lutheran company, and she was starting out her business about the time that I was downsized. So we kind of came at it from, the same sort of like, what are we doing? I don't know. And she had this, it was interesting. When I finally met her after, I don't know, a couple of years of doing things for her, and I honestly expected her to have a British accent, because my very first project for her was designing this Luther brocade. Well, she had it loomed in London, England, and she has I don't think it's a degree, but she went to the school, what is it, the Royal School of Needlework. She's been to the Williamsburg needlework, whatever. And so I thought, I want to meet this British person. Well, I went to Minnesota, and she had an upper Midwest accent. So anyway, I do some work for her. The one thing I want to say about her products, yeah, they're super pricey, but she did a lot of research. They are built like tanks. When they lay flat, they lay flat. And there's a lot of, layers in each of the pieces. There's something else I've done. There's that Luther brocade. Since I designed that, I read something someplace that kind of, it's like, yeah, it's nice, but someone, I don't remember who, said you really shouldn't put Luther's symbol anywhere near symbols of the Holy Trinity or any of that. So it's like I have kind of mixed feelings now about it, but whatever. It's still pretty. This stuff you may recognize from I did a body of work for bulletin covers for my own church, and then, I did all this work, I don't know, hundreds of drawings, and I thought, well, why don't I donate it to higher things that can raise funds and, spread the joy. So they're, I assume, seems like I saw a bulletin cover. Yeah. They don't cover everything, and the book, in theory, was to fill, one of the reasons for doing it was to fill some of the voids that are in this collection. And I've also been bugging from the get-go. One of the ideas was that the images in the book would be available to pastors in a digital format. And I haven't heard boo from them since the book has come out, so I did the kind of bold thing, and because I got this, when I got my copy of the book, there's a nice note from the president of CPH. It goes, anytime you need anything. Like, so I emailed him, I need something. Have you heard about this? No, I don't know anything. So, and pastors have been asking me, hey, do you have something for, St. Bartholomew? His day falls on a Sunday this year. Do you have something? He's like, yeah, but my hands are kind of tied, and I feel foolish, because it's like, come on, CPH, get your act together. So in theory, that's at least being talked about. You wouldn't get all the symbols, because there are some that are just useless. I mean, the papal shoes, really, what are you going to use that for? But like a block of maybe 200 of the useful things, all the saints. I did, so all the apostles are in there, all of the, what I call, basically everyone who's in the sanctoral calendar. I went down that, and it's like, I want everyone. I can't leave anyone else. So they're all in there. There's a few other odd Lutheran movers and shakers, Stations of the Cross, even though Lutherans look at that differently, and a few other things to kind of really beef up this earlier body of work. This is a painting I did. It was commissioned, strangely, by a Calvinist. It was an eye surgeon in Grand Rapids who had a whole collection of the Prodigal Son, including he had a Rembrandt print and a few other things, and throwing some money around. And I made an addition to the painting, it's like the last week I was working on it. It's like, this is going to a Calvinist. I don't want him to think that he can just walk up to God. So I painted in the Holy Spirit, pushing him along. This is a piece. This is a little teeny section of a piece at the church I belong to, Our Savior in Grand Rapids. It's the Te Deum. It was my first big project, I guess. The first one that was finished. Actually, there was one before that in the church where I used to go. And just a quick story about that without naming names. It was a huge image, like a wall, maybe half as long as this room. A close-up of Christ crucified. And someone said, you can't finish that, because that's going to scare the kids. And he was honest, he was being truthful. So I stopped it, and that stuck in my head for a long time. And it's like, really? We're that afraid to explain things to our children? Anyway, so this wraps around the entire sanctuary. Let's go to the next one. Oh, let me say this. So Gloria Publishing, I'm sure you know that. It's one of their next books. I've been bugged to turn that into a book. From the get-go, it seemed impossible, and it really is. He had a cobble it together, and he changed some things. In the original, I used the old words, so that didn't fly. I used Fractor, it's a old German text, and I used kind of the original version of it. There are some newer versions which switch out some of the characters. I didn't know this, but I think in sort of modern history, only in modern history has the K, lowercase k, been used in German. Apparently it was CH maybe to get that sound. And the K is weird. It looks like a lowercase t. So that causes problems. I left it in the Te Deum mural. It looks from a distance, if you're just glancing, it's like when he tootest upon thee, and it's like, okay. So I understand why they swapped that out for the book. But anyway, that is coming out. Gloria Publishing, so look for that. It should be out by the end of this month, maybe. Here's what it's like, can you photograph that for us? It's like, yeah, do you have a Google car? Can you drive it? There's no way you can. It took me 2 years to make this thing, and I created it when I was still working at the press. So how do you even begin to do this? Now, Pastor Krieger, the late Pastor Krieger, I think he was trying to give me one last catechism test. He goes, Ed, you can do whatever you want, just maybe swash of color just to represent the Te Deum. I'm thinking, you stinker. You have to have the words. You can't do the Te Deum without the words. I'm not going to do a swash of color. Um, so fine. Where do you go from there? I took the words. I literally typed them out in a long string, and I measured them with a ruler. It seems weird, but it's like I don't know how else to do this. So I measured them out. I knew where the windows and doors and corners of the room were. That all was taken into consideration. And some of the words seemed to go together, so I would stack them up. And some, and here I'm drawing this thing on my lunch hours at work with this 100-foot roll of paper on my drawing board. I'm like, and draw a section. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just like, oh, I have to do this. Okay, next section. So this is one of those humbling moments. Have you ever drilled holes in a sanctuary wall? and not really, well, and then discover that the studs aren't really where they're supposed to be? That's what we were dealing with. So I got it up and I sat down, and an odd thing happened. I'm working on this thing, and it's like, that's pretty special. But I did not see it as my work. It was really, and I don't know how else to describe the feeling, but it's like, that's pretty nice. And still, it's like, I can't, it's hard for me to say this is my piece, because it really isn't my piece anyway, right? I mean, he gave me the ability, and it's all about him. I have nothing to do with it. I was just there, and people, it almost irritates me when people pay me compliments about a piece that I do. I've gotten to the point where I just simply say, if there's something noble in this, if there's something right about this, if you see beauty in this, if this causes you to think about Scripture, that's the Lord at work. Whenever you see mistakes, and there were mistakes in this. I misspelled some words, and I forgot Daniel, for Pete's sake. That's me at work. It's like, wow. I still don't get, and again, here I'm in front of you talking about this stuff. It's like, Lord, you have a weird way of using the most useless, knuckleheads, and I'll do it, sure. But so anyway, here's something else that I did not do. You probably can't see it. So there's sort of this freestanding chancel area. The baptismal font is by the little that comes down. I also did that. That's the Holy Spirit descending. So I laid this thing out, and the words. The part about his death and resurrection is by the baptismal font. And the part about him reigning and returning in glory is by the pulpit. I didn't plan that. That was not me, because I was just trying to jam all these words in there. Here I am. Oh, this is the next piece. Here we jump to Fairgrove, Michigan. I was asked by someone to do another mural, perhaps out of slight jealousy. The one thing about this mural is that person who I'm facing, that's an image of my late father. I did this not long after he died. And you can't see it there, but there's like, I think there's a crutch maybe laying there, and his glasses. It's like, he doesn't need that. The angel is lifting him up. And I think I did a detail on this one too at the very last. I put a crack in that sarcophagus. It's like, death, you stupid idiot. Take that. Oh, and there's a couple of handsome guys. Installing it. Yeah. This piece is hanging in the narthex of my church. It ended up there just because it's like, well, it doesn't belong in my house. Well, I mean, it's not like I disliked it, but it's like this should go someplace. Uh, Originally, this was done for an art show, spiritual art show, something like that, and it was rejected. This was a Methodist church, if you're wondering. Uh, and I thought, it must be a different spirit or something. I don't know. This found a good home. This was an art prize too, in a weird, what church was that? Episcopal church that proudly flew the gay pride flag or something. It's like, well, at least for a week or two, they'll have something nice in it. Okay. Well, it's Moses taking the blood. It's describing him taking the blood and sprinkling on it, and then tying it in with the banner below, "His blood be on us and our children," which is from the crowd, wanting his death. Although for us, it strangely becomes a prayer. It's like, yeah, we want his blood on our children. When I do these, there's things I've kind of grown to. I just do out of habit, I guess. Oh, and this ties back to that original piece where the guy asked, "Who is that man and why did he have to die?" Because it was a nativity, not the. I mean, it's same format. I have this theory in my head that when the angel said, "This shall be a sign to you," I don't think they were really giving them like street directions, like you go down this road and this is a sign. And the fact that that Christ is in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger, and I'm using what I've been told is the more correct type of manger, not the wooden European thing. It looks like someone who's going to be buried. It's a burial scene. In fact, I took it off my presentation. I had a photo that I grabbed when I still worked at the press. It's like, this is perfect. It was a beautiful photograph of this arms holding this baby. It was all swaddled just like that. That's just gorgeous. It was a dead baby, and the photo was taken during the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine or whatever. They know that's how a baby is prepared for burial. They wrap it that way. Same thing. If it weren't for like the plaid shirt, you'd think, that's a beautiful nativity scene. This particular one, so I always use that, the stone sarcophagus with the wrapped thing. Joseph, by tradition, is always, well, I shouldn't say always, he's usually shown holding a candle or a light of some kind, meaning that he's bearing the light of the world. Unfortunately, he's also often shown sleeping because everything that was told him was in a dream. It was given to him in a dream. So they show him sleeping holding a candle, which is, don't do that. In my case, I like to show a lantern with a very conspicuous cross over the front. I mean, it looks like a colonial one, but come on, get over it. The ram caught in a thicket, the rose, the buildings in the background. So I guess, I don't know why, but they wanted to show on the left there, you see that little church steeple-y thing? It's like a landmark in the area. It's a Roman Catholic chapel, but everyone knows what that is. So I put that in there. The church is where on the right-hand side is where this image is, which it ended up in a chapel of the church. But I made sure that it was the back of the church to show that, this isn't Mary and Joseph out in front by the street. This is kind of in the back where There's not even room in the church. We had to put them back there by the woods. And this image, it's, people say, why is Joseph looking at us? Well, because he knows you're there. It's kind of an old artistic device. You look at it, the viewer, and it kind of pulls you in. The setting for this piece is very intimate. It's a very nice little tight chapel. So when you walk in, it's like, oh, baby Jesus, This is a detail that was down there. That's how I signed it, but it's also on their cornerstone. So I thought that was appropriate to sign it with that. The work of our hands. There's that K. Looks like a T. The work of our hands. And even little details like, I didn't have to put, yeah, I did. I put 3 leaves there. Every time you have an opportunity, do it. This is an interesting painting, and I'm sorry, they're all interesting to me. I had done the blue, there's a blue underpainting on this. So I did this blue underpainting, and I'll stick that in the closet. And some gal, I think she was maybe, certainly friends with one of my sons. One time asked, did you ever do anything with that painting? I'm like, no, it's in a closet. So it sat there for like almost 2 years. Then I asked my pastor, am I being a heretic when I interpret it this way? He said, no, it's a little unusual, but it's correct. And the reason why I did this is I hear so often, and I have to admit, I listen to a cheesy contemporary Christian radio show or station that's, I don't even know what brand of Christianity they are, but it's, it's like, I love God so much. I love him. I love him. I love him. And most people take that, the sort of the pearl of great price, or, he is my treasure. I just really treasure him. And then I started thinking about myself. It's like, if you treasure him so much, what'd you do that for? If you like him so much, why are you acting this way? And then I thought, the parables aren't about me. They're about the kingdom of heaven. So I thought, well, here he is, this guy who sold all that he had. And that's what I like about this parable. It's just like, one sentence? It is so concise. And he bought that field. And I'm thinking, field. Usually it's like some random farmer's field or something. And I thought, a cemetery has stones in it. It's a sort of field. And I wouldn't be the first to use that language, in Flanders field, that sort of idea. And then I thought, this is what he treasures, is this stinking, rotting corpse, all of these, the dregs of humanity, the people that we just don't care about, we can abort a baby, whatever. The people who are just consumed by woe, who just can't cope, seemingly, this mess of humanity. This is what he treasures. And what really helps in the English language is the terms we use for a coffin. A coffin is a container for wealth. I mean, the same root word. And what do we do with it? Oh, we put it in a vault. This is what the Lord loves and cherishes, and he holds it in his arm. This is what the kingdom of heaven is like. Occasionally I get weird requests. This is so St. Paul? St. Paul, Ann Arbor. They have a beautiful historic church in downtown Ann Arbor. Unfortunately, they have a historic preservation society, and they said, no, you can't knock down houses for your parking. So they also have an off-site school. So they decided to have services there for, overflow, whatever. And they said, help us, turn this into a sanctuary. If you can ignore the basketball nuts and stuff. So I said, okay, it's going to have to be big, because this is a big space. Those banners, they made oversized banners, and they're dwarfed by the space. Since this photo was taken, I actually add 2 more panels, one on each end, because this kind of was filled with a few goofy things. They wanted the skyline of Ann Arbor, which, okay. So, yeah, I guess I did get the Concordia in there a little bit. So, yeah, Jesus is 17 feet tall. So you just have to. I mean, and even then, it doesn't look, huge. Oh, I also had to change his face, because originally I had more of a stern face. Oh, we have to have a happy Jesus. So, yeah. I also do, I do everything. And that came out of my head wrong. I do other stuff. This is a very small, portable triptych. I think it's maybe like a couple feet tall, maybe. This one I did for, actually, when there used to be a Lutheran art show in Michigan. I don't think it's in existence anymore. This was an entry. It didn't take a prize. Oh, it would have taken a prize. This is odd. I learned this afterwards from the person who organized this. You would have taken first prize, but first prize is coupled with a purchase prize, and your price was too high. Like, okay, thanks for telling me. Eventually, this is weird. Eventually, it's like, this sat in my barn after that. It was just in the loft, and the birds are pooping on it and stuff. It's like, okay, this needs a home. I don't care who wants it. It's up for grabs. A friend of a friend who, a pastor in Canada, said, I'll take it. Okay, so he took it. I found out that he trashed the furniture that I'd built and kept just the paintings, put them under glass. And I didn't want to ask any, by then it's like, I don't want to know. But the church, his church, I found out later was, and I didn't even know this bit of family history, was where my mother's parents were married. Some random little teeny town in Canada. This was a thing I did for a Lutheran church in Lowell, which is close to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mosaic, so I do mosaic work. Extremely expensive, kind of a pain in the neck to work with, but it's fun. This piece, is there a pastor here who, I don't know where this ended up. This ended up in Wisconsin someplace. I just kind of built it, and someone said, I'll take that. So I had, I think, the bronze corpus, I had cast, and I had 3 copies made. The first one, the reason why I had them cast in the first place was for, so the original corpus was done for First Lutheran in Boston, and they had a shopping list for their, we want a bronze corpus. It's got to be this big. We want, and they asked for ridiculous things. We want, we need acacia wood in there. We need cedar of Lebanon. I mean, you could see where they were going with this, right? Well, so I could not find acacia wood except in small pieces. Cedar of Lebanon, I found one beam around Shipshawana area. One beam for $3,000. It's like, you're not getting that. Oh, yeah. So they wanted this bronze. This isn't the one for First Boston, or First Lutheran in Boston, but it did have the same corpus. Well, I finished the thing, and it's like, oh, and the other thing was they wanted the base. We need the footprint to be pretty small because it's got to fit in this area. Like, okay, but the staff has to be this long. It's like, you don't realize what you're asking for. I gave it to them, and I told them, you need a man to carry this. You can't have any young acolyte because it's a struggle for me to carry the thing. You wanted bronze, you got bronze. That thing is heavy, it's top heavy, and the base is so small, it's like you have to be careful on it. But anyway, I try to, when I get commissions, I try to coach people. It's like, well, this is probably a better way to do it, but sometimes they know what they want. Color on this is horrible. What can I say about this? Lutheran Church Extension Fund has this. They ended up with it. I can't look at that. The color is way off. This is up the road in Garrett, Indiana. They wanted something for their, it's traditional to put a cross by the pulpit. And I don't know why so they wanted this painting. So there's no doubt what they preach. This is a fairly recent one, a pair that ended up in All Saints Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, I don't want to, there's a cool story about this, especially the one on the right-hand side. Well, I'll tell it to you. Once in a while, I hear stories, and it's like, that is so cool, but again, I have nothing to do with it. There is the wife of a missionary who, she is also a deaconess. She is slightly older than me, and I'll let you put two and two together if you can figure out who this person is. She, for her whole life, has had this terrible, terrible fear of snakes. I mean, terrible. So terrible that if you say the word, her family and her grandkids know, you do not say the word snake. You do not show grandma a picture of a snake. If you're looking at a book and you know a picture of a snake is coming up, you warn her. Grandma, you don't want to see the next page. I'm not going to tell you why, but you don't want to see it. And it's been a serious thing. And every time she does see something, she also has epilepsy. So she starts doing this, closing her eyes and this kind of thing. Her family knows this whole routine. She's trying to cut it up, the snake. She's trying to purge it from her mind. So anyway, she shows up at this church, and she's worshiping, and she sees, maybe you can't even see it. There's a snake. Christ is standing on his head. And she was worshiping, and she couldn't stop taking peeks at that thing, apparently. And afterwards, the pastor invited her up to come and look at it, and he explained to her, one of the things that you can't see here, the fangs of the snake have been ripped out, and they're laying at the foot underneath that Cairo. You can't see it here. Take my word, they're there. So she had to call me, and we actually had a Zoom meeting And first words out of her mouth were, "I expected you to be younger." Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. Can we proceed? Um, so she wanted to tell me how that's changed her life. So she said, "You do not understand that I can say the word snake. I can look at it now. I can do all this stuff." And she said, "It's too bad you can't paint another one of these. I sell prints." So she ordered one, and she had not, when she talked to me, she had not talked to her family about this. So this is going to freak them out. Maybe they'll have a epileptic fit or something. I don't know. This is a very old one that I did. It's so old that it's, you can't see it, but it's cracking. Yeah. I use my daughter for Mary and a teddy bear for Jesus. This is up the road here at the seminary. Part of, I didn't do anything really to get where I am today. There's so many weird things that happened that were out of my control. So my son, Sean, Reverend Sean Denzer, graduated from the seminary there, and it was, I don't know if it's still the practice, but the graduating class gives a gift to the seminary. And he and his classmates pitched in, and they commissioned me. And there was a committee of the students that they said what they wanted, and then I was promptly introduced to another committee at the seminary. Oh, we can't just take anything. So I had to deal with two committees in creating this piece. So the story after that is that all these pastors, went to their congregation. They had all received calls, and now they're returning to me with work, which is kind of nice. I mean, they know who I am. There's a detail of one of the pieces. This one's kind of an odd thing. I actually did it for Art Prize again. You probably can't see it there's faintly, it's Potomaina. It's like, what is that? Apparently she was an early Christian martyr. I ran across her by reading Eusebius or something. And it was just kind of one of those like, there's an awful lot of martyrs, a lot of people who just like no names who gave their lives. And, sure, we know Stephen. We know a lot of, we know John the Forerunner. We know that stuff. But Potomaina, who's that? Her story is, and it's like one sentence from Eusebius, she was known for her extreme beauty. She did not renounce her faith, even with threats, even with horrible things that took care of her beauty, and so she was murdered. I guess the goofy thing is, I asked this young girl who sat behind our family in church. It's like, and she was a teenager at the time. Actually, I asked her parents. It's like, this is going to be weird. I don't want it to get creepy because I'm an old guy, and so would you mind if your daughter, oh, no, blah, blah, blah. So she sat for me, and I took photos of her. She ended up being my daughter-in-law. So that was pretty special. Sometimes I not intentionally, step out of bounds, so to speak. This is for an Elka church, way up in Wausau, Elka. They're pretty confessional, but a little, there is, how do I say this? There is stuff that you recognize like, you're, okay. But anyway, they wanted this piece. They wanted it to be very old style. So I created this. This is for a chapel off the main nave of the church. It's old style because, so I had to fit it in this certain space, right? It's got this goofy niche. It's not really a chancel. It's just this niche that I had to fit into. So the door's open. So this is Holy Week. So you've got the entrance into Jerusalem. You've got the washing of the disciples' feet, crucifixion, and then for Easter, ta-da, more doors open. The people on the far left who were part of the entrance into Jerusalem, they become now the company of martyrs, and the apostles on the right now become, the entire host of heaven. So that was kind of a fun project. I never painted on both sides of a panel before. It's like, how do I even transport this thing? This is for a church in Battle Creek, Michigan. This is our church school. There is no doubt what goes on in that school. This is a recent project, the second of two window projects for churches in Taiwan. This particular church was interesting. You work on something that is not in your culture. It's like you try to become sensitive to their culture. So it's got this kind of fluid motif, and I found out someplace that swirly stuff is a big deal in their traditional culture. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to use that. So this is one of two that flank the altar cross. This one is red, the other one is blue. So it's blood and water. And then those kind of go out into the other parts of the sanctuary. This was done originally for a church. I can't even remember where it was. Someplace in Tornado Alley. It just leveled their church. And I put tornadoes in the background. You often see this account painted, but it's like, oh, the seas are so rough and stuff. But I wanted something that was like so calm, it was like freaky calm. So I wanted that mirror calmness. Something I did a few years ago. Sometimes you see, this is kind of a goofy thing. In iconography, Orthodox iconography, usually you see the angel, this is Gabriel, right? So he's holding this thing, and sometimes it looks like an orb, like a glass orb with a cross on the top. And that's not the original intent. The original intent, and this is goofy, it's a mirror. And so why? It's because the angels do not look at God. So they cheat and use a mirror. It's like, that's kind of weird. This, Scripture has so many cool things. I mean, all the obvious stuff. And I really encourage you, this is what I have to do as part of my vocation, is I have to really, what I call, read in the margins, not between the lines, but in the margins. There's so much richness and cool stuff there. You have to and we're just so, we just gloss over the words, and sometimes just stop and look at the words. So there's this goofy account in Jude, I think it is. And it's like, what did I just read? Wait, what? When the devil was contending for the body of Moses? What the heck? So there's behind the angel, horizontal, is the body of Moses. He's wrapped up, embalmed. And then it's like, oh, I kind of like this cloth thing. It's sort of like a funeral pall, kind of, the blood of Christ just kind of falling down on his body. And there's Satan pointing to himself. And Michael is pointing up. What you can't see here is So we know the story, the publican and Pharisee, and the Pharisee, he's like right in the middle. He's not the main character. Neither is the publican down there. If you could, I wish you could see it. There's a guy walking up, putting his hand on his shoulder, and his hand is pierced. That's the focus of the painting. Questions? Yes.
You have 3 of your interns here today. Tell us what you are learning as you are teaching young people how to do art, and perhaps also a word for parents for what we could be doing to incite the doodling and creativity that you did as a boy. What fosters that?
Okay, I'm going to speak mostly to the parents because the only thing I'm learning from these gals is that I'm old and they have way much more energy than I do. And they have way much more enthusiasm. For parents, if you have someone who's, and this isn't just art, I would say this across the board. If you have someone who has a weird talent that's outside of your wheelhouse, outside of your expectations, don't discount them. Just kind of ride along with them. Maybe if they're whatever they're into, maybe it'll change. Encourage them. So I heard, okay. So what I didn't tell you is, I was brought up in a Lutheran household. My dad was a truck driver. My mom was a nurse's aide. And along comes this artist. It's like, what is that? What do we do with this thing? With this kid. My mom was always like, it's okay. And I heard after my dad died that she told him at one point, just let him go, because he had some concerns. It's like, well, any parent has concerns. Well, what about education? How is this guy going to live? And the wonderful thing was I was able to, the one quote later in life from my dad was, you don't have to take a second seat to anybody. To be able to give that kind of encouragement to your kids, no matter how weird they are, as far as art, try, it's hard, but try to find programs that can keep their interest. The gals are just now learning, I think I've created printmaking freaks. They are just so into printmaking. And I'm talking etching and lino cuts and that kind of stuff. And there are some programs you have to hunt for them, I don't know, summer, like summer camps or whatever. They're out there. They could be pricey or whatever, but, encourage your kids. And let them color the bulletin covers. My grandkids do that too. Look what I did, Grandpa. It's like, oh dear. Just encourage. Does that answer your question? Okay. Oh boy, lots of questions. Oh, we're back.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation to start. It's very good. Would you explain, just historically speaking, why one of the distinguishing features of Jesus is that he has longer hair? Because I have in mind specifically one of your bulletin covers that you did for Utica Sunday, which which is about a month or so ago here, and you have Jesus in the center with the Jews who are accusing him, and Jesus of course has the halo around him, but he also has longer hair and the Jews have shorter hair. So I was wondering if you could shed some light on that maybe.
Oh, I don't know, tradition maybe. I don't know. It's so the weird thing is, we sort of take some cues from Orthodoxy. They claim to have the oldest and yada yada, but to some extent that's true. An interesting thing I was going to show. Sometimes they get it very right. Sometimes they get it very wrong. Early icons of his baptism, for instance, they have these like two figures in the water. And it's like, what is that? It's like, oh, they're the gods of the river. gods of the river, really? So yeah, I guess the short answer is it's just tradition.
I think we better cut it off.
Okay.
Here, but thank you very much. Okay, we have 15 minutes break.